creamy pesto cavatappi with chicken.
Let's see what's cooking. It's time for Yo-Yo Makes 12.
Hello everyone, I'm going to tell you a little story before we get onto the recipe. The photo you're looking at is from the Pillsbury website, and this is their photo of their pesto cavatappi. When I saw this, I thought that it looked delicious and it was something I wanted to try, and I've never actually made a recipe using pesto before. On the same day, I was watching my friend Kathy here, who is totally Kathy on YouTube. She was doing a live stream and she was talking about how she's going to be making some pesto because a friend of hers was bringing her a big pile of fresh basil. So I suggested to her, hey, you make the pesto recipe and I'm going to do a recipe that uses the pesto. We can do a little collaboration. So that's what we decided to do. Now, Totally Kathy is one of my newer YouTube friends, but she's quickly become one of my favorite ones. She does live streams every day. She is like a motivational speaker. She is just a super nice lady, and you can't participate in her live stream and not feel better at the end of it. She is a life coach. She gives a lot of information about weight loss and diets, and she's just a really, really awesome person. So I'm going to put a link to her video where she makes pesto, and she makes a lot of pesto. I'll put that at the end of the video. Check it out. So for this recipe, I needed pesto, of course, and I'd never made pesto before. I knew that I needed about 7 ounces, or about a cup's worth. So I found a recipe that made a small amount, and this is the ingredients that I used. I used 1/3 cup of pine nuts. You apparently can also sub in walnuts if you don't have pine nuts. And then 2 cups of fresh basil leaves that are packed. And the website said you could actually sub half the basil leaves with baby spinach. So that's interesting. I may try that the next time and see how it goes. And then I tried to pulse this with my blender, but no, it wasn't going. If you had a food processor, you should chop these things together. In my case with a blender, I had to put all the ingredients in and then blend it. That's 3 cloves of garlic minced, half a cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese, about 1/8 teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And then when I put that olive oil in there and then hit the blender, it worked very well and it blended up quite nicely. So if you don't have a food processor, you can certainly use just your garden variety blender. It works quite nicely. And I just blended until it looked nice and smooth. And that's what the recipe made. It made about a cup, and I just love the color. It's such a beautiful green. Now on to the pasta chicken recipe, starting off with a tablespoon of olive oil in a skillet. You're going to heat it. To that I added about 20 ounces of cut up chicken breast, seasoned with salt and pepper. Now 20 ounces is about, say, 2 large chicken breasts or maybe 3 small ones, approximately. I cooked that until the chicken was done, browned and no longer pink. Then I added a cup of mushrooms and a cup of chopped up tomato. And then I cooked and stirred this for about 3-4 minutes until the tomato had softened and it looked like the mushrooms were done. Then I turned the heat down and I added in the pesto. Now the original recipe on the Pillsbury website asks for 7 ounces. I had 8, so I put the whole thing in. And 3/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. And then you're going to stir that all together over medium heat, and you're just going to bring this back up to a simmer just to heat it through nicely. You don't want to cook this very long afterwards because you don't want to cook up the pesto. Then we're adding 8 ounces of cavatappi pasta that's been cooked and drained. And cavatappi is like a little corkscrew. It's also called Scooby-Doo noodles as well. Put that in there, and then you're going to toss it to coat it. Make sure it's heated through, and don't put any on your stovetop. And it's ready to serve. You can serve it with additional Parmesan cheese and a little sprig of basil just to make it look fancy. And there it is. It turned out a very startling shade of green. It's like really green, but absolutely delicious. The flavor in this is amazing. I really, really loved it. My husband, not so much, because he's not a big lover of Parmesan and basil, so he ate it, said it was okay. My son Max, who is 20 years old, he thought it was awesome, and he also had a big portion of this. So this is a winner in my book. I really liked it. I might put a little bit more pasta the next time, or cut the pesto to maybe, instead of 8 ounces, maybe to 6. Don't forget to check out Totally Kathy. In her video, she makes some basil pesto and she gives some great hints and tips and advice on how to make it and where to buy the ingredients. You are going to love her. Go check her out.